Hi, I'm Gena. Today, we're going to be plotting railroads on a map. So more generically, we're going to take some JSON, parse it, extract the GeoJSON field, create an object type, and then finally put it on a map. Before we get started, a quick word from our founder.
Discover how Palantir customers unlock more value from Foundry and AIP thanks to our live instructor-led trainings. We are Ontologize, a group of former Palantir engineers who love teaching. We've trained thousands of Palantir users at leading organizations around the world. Unlock the full potential of your Palantir deployment by going to ontologize.com.
So for this exercise, we're going to be using data on U.S. railroads from the U.S. Energy Atlas. Now here, you'll see that in order to see any records, we have to zoom in because there's just too many to view at this scale. So if I zoom in, say to California, then I can see the railroads in California. Now, I do want to download the data, but there are a lot of records here. So just to make sure that we can be efficient, you're going to want to filter data down to most likely a certain state. So here I picked California, but you can choose whatever state you want. And so once you've selected your filters, you're going to go ahead and download your data. So you're going to hit download. And now we're going to be downloading the GeoJSON. So you're going to hit download. Now, once you've downloaded, let's take a look at what we have. So here, we can see that we do have a GeoJSON field. Generically, though, we're looking at JSON data, but we also do have a GeoJSON field that we're going to need to pay attention to. Now, thing is, we don't just want the GeoJSON information. We're also going to want some other information, like, for example, what kind of network and who is the railroad owner. So that's going to be our data. Now let's go put it in Foundry. Now, from anywhere in Foundry, you're going to hit Control-J to find your learning project. So mine is Gena, Learning Project. And now I'm going to make a new folder for this work. So I'm going to hit New, Folder, and I'm going to call this one Railroad. Now I'm going to click on it. And here, I'm going to hit New, Pipeline Builder. So we're going to be using Pipeline Builder to parse this JSON. Now I'm going to call this one Parse Railroad JSON. It's a batch pipeline, and now I'm going to hit Create Pipeline. And so now from here, I'm going to hit Upload from Computer, choose from Computer, and we're going to grab USA Railroads GeoJSON and hit Open. Now we're going to make sure we're uploading to a new unstructured data set and hit Upload. And now just give this a second to upload. Add Foundry data, upload from your computer, and you're going to hit Choose from your computer and grab that data set, upload to a new unstructured data set, and hit Upload. So make sure that you only have probably 5 or 6 megabytes here. If you see something like 140 megabytes, that means you download the entire data set, and you probably don't want to do that because that's more information than most people will want to see on a map. Now you're going to hit Done and rename this. So we're going to hit Rename and call this Railroad JSON. Now, we're going to hit Transform. So it could be tempting to say extract rows from a GeoJSON file, but let's see what happens when we do that. And here, I would paste a JSON sample to generate a schema. So I'd hit Preview, select everything here, Control-C or Command-C, paste the JSON sample, and hit Generate Schema. If I hit Apply, you'll see here that it's only going to extract the GeoJSON. And we don't want that. There's some other features that we want to. So we're going to get rid of this if you tried it out. And you're just going to search for JSON, and it's going to be extract rows from a JSON file. And so you can use that same copy paste from the last step. So again, what we did, Preview, Control-A to highlight everything, Control-C, pop it in here, and hit Generate a Schema. And there we have our schema. Now, we're going to need some more parsing here, but we'll do that as we go. Now let's hit Apply and see what we've got. So here, you're going to hit Output Table. And you'll see here we have one row, which means we have some work to do. So features, that's where most of our work is going to live. This is an array right now. We're going to explode it. So explode. Just a regular old explode, and we're exploding features. And now we have ourselves multiple rows. And you'll see that features is now a struct because what we were dealing with was an array of structs. Now, this is a very helpful struct. There's very good data in here, but we're going to need to flatten it. So we're going to search for flatten struct. Click on it. The expression that we're flattening is going to be columns and features. Now we're going to hit apply. And so now we have properties, which is going to need further flattening. But most importantly, geometry is properly parsed. Now, we're going to have to do a little bit more work to this to A, be able to use the pipeline builder Geo Preview, and B, get it to a proper geometry, but that's going to happen later. For now, let's do one more flattened struct. Now, note that we could have had a max depth of 2 in this step, and that would have flattened the struct entirely. I didn't do that, though. I preferred to do it one at a time. So the expression here is properties. And now we're going to hit apply. And now we have all sorts of useful information here. We can see that pop up. Like the state, well, we know the state, the subdivision, the railroad owner, a description, some properties here that are a bit sparse, miles, generally interesting things. Now we're going to be using object ID as a primary key. We're going to have to cast that to a string first. But before we do that, let's deal with the most interesting feature, which is, of course, the geometry. Now, the funny thing about geometry is that we're actually going to have to cast this to JSON. So from a struct to JSON, and then we're going to cast it to a geometry. So you're going to search for JSON, and you're going to click on Convert Data to JSON. The input is going to be geometry, and the output is going to be called geometry. Now we're going to hit apply, and you'll see here we have a almost proper geometry here. It is a string now instead of a JSON. Now, the last step that we're going to do to get this to be a proper geometry is you're going to search for prepare geometry, and you're going to click on prepare geometry. The geometry string is going to be the geometry. And now we're going to hit apply. And now we have converted this to a valid geometry type. So now this is valid GeoJSON, which means that Pipeline Builder recognized that this is geometry. What that means, first of all, you'll see that the column type actually has changed here to geometry. Again, that means it's proper GeoJSON. Now, if you click on this, you're going to see that there's this option to open in a Geo Preview. Now, that is a super useful thing. So we're going to hit Open Geo Preview. And here, we can see a little preview. Remember, this is not going to be all the data, which is why it looks a little spotty. But this is just a preview of our railroads on the map. And so here, that's how we can check that everything is going okay. Now, the very last thing that we're going to do here is make sure we have our primary key. So you're going to search for cast. And we're going to be casting the object ID to a string. Hit apply. Now, of course, we want to double check that that is in fact a primary key. So you're going to hit the dropdown, hit view stats, and we can see that indeed this is a primary key, and we are now good to move on. So now make sure you've hit apply and close. And now we're going to produce our object output, but we're going to do it straight from Pipeline Builder for ease. So you're going to click on Add Output. It's going to be a new object type. And we're going to call this Railroad. And for the icon, I'm going to give it a little train. So maybe a train or a locomotive. And you'll see here that geometry is in fact a geometry base type, which is a special base type that allows us to render geometry as shapes. And just double check that the primary key is indeed set to object ID. Pipeline Builder will, by default, select the first column as the primary key, so just make sure it chose the right one. Now you're going to hit save and deploy, and we're going to get an error. So here, you're going to see that we have to specify a target ontology. So it's going to be the Ontologize public ontology for me, and hit save. Now the other error, let's talk about it. So we have two struct features in our output. That structs are supported in the ontology, but not structs with nested structs or arrays. So we're going to go ahead and drop them. So you're going to go back into your transform path, hit edit, and search for drop columns. And the columns we're dropping are CRS. And it's going to be our other remaining struct property. We won't actually need any of these struct properties, so let's go ahead and drop all of these. And then we're going to hit apply all and close. And now we're going to edit the configuration for this object and get rid of those properties. So no properties, no features, and no CRS. All right. Now that we fixed that, you're going to hit save and deploy. And then deploy. And now our deployment is started, and now we're just going to hang tight until this finishes deploying. Note that even after the deployment is done, we need to wait for our object to index to the ontology backend. So we're going to have to hang tight for a few minutes while that happens. And now our deployment has succeeded. And if we go hit close, if we hover over that output, we can hit open in Ontology Manager. And here we can verify that our index has succeeded, and we now have about 7,000 objects. So let's go plot them on a map. So we're going to do this in the Maps app, but in theory, you could also do this in Workshop. So here you're going to hit Control-J and search for Map. Now you're going to click on Map. And now we're going to add a layer. So here we're going to hit Add to Map. And you're going to search for Railroad. Now you're going to click on Railroad, and we're going to add all of these to the map. And here we can see that we have our railroads throughout California. Now, this is perfectly interesting on its own, but probably more interesting if we can add some color to it. So here, you're going to click into the layer, and now we're going to go, instead of a fixed color, we're going to make this property. And the property, we actually have a lot of options. So one could be, for example, railroad owner. And now instead of manually assigning colors, we're going to uncheck manual and say automatic. But note that if you wanted to, you could assign a specific color to every railroad operator. And see, of course, the legend here. So there's a lot of different values. You probably want to work with fewer values than this. But here we have our GeoJSON line string displaying, and that concludes this tutorial. Thanks for watching. We hope you found this helpful. Let us know what you want to see next in the comments.